All right. Amazing. All right, so we have Barbara, and we have Peter, and I'm Lauren Celenza, and I'm a writer, designer, and interview journalist, and when we were putting together this, the lineup for this year, I was chatting with Cappy C, and I was like, oh, we have to put Barbara and Peter together. Can we please do that? Because there is an obvious and clear interplay or tension, I think, between both of your work that I'd love to start this conversation off with. So, Slow. Slow is a collective, a method, a way to sort of subvert our existing structures of capitalism, right? And make something more sustainable. Barbara, Mesa, solving complex challenges in 5 days. I love the tension of this. So,
that fight.
But what I also really just want to mention is that I love your definition of, there's a difference between working quickly and hurry. And I think you would identify this as a motorcycle racer yourself. When you're in a car or on a motorcycle, you have to be very intentional with your timing when you make a turn, when you slow down. And I think a lot of times when we're talking about speed, we're actually maybe talking about agility. How do we maintain the agility to make the pivots that we need to make, to solve the challenges that we need to solve? But at the end of the day, we are always feeling the pressure to move with urgency, to move in a hurried way. So how do you both, I'd love for each of you to answer this, how do you both hold on to what's true and intentional to you when you're faced with that pressure of urgency?
You want to? Ladies first.
I think intentional is a good word here, because I think, that's it. As long as you're doing something very intentionally. So it's nearly like the speed won't matter as long as you're very clear on your intention for that. Then you're not just hurrying. Then you're not just going fast or, just doing slow for being slow, right? Like you actually have an intention in that thing. And I just saw the building with the sound system inside, and I'm dying to go there and just take a lot of time to be very slow and to listen to an invitation that becomes when you're just there listening to something. So I think that's it. The axle that connects these two things is intention. I think that's a good way of understanding it.
I mean, hospitality is pretty direct and responsive and very easy in this point, because either you work on a specific target, for example, building-wise or opening-wise, and you have tough timelines to really get finished. Like the first night here, when everything was still under construction. So that's the tension you need to be a little under pressure to put it on the point, to pin it down, and then you get rewarded directly when you serve. When you have food, when you have drinks, and so. It's a very rewarding system, hospitality. People feel good, or hopefully you make the best out of it, that the people get the experience they want. And that's why I always say we are a facilitator. We are a facilitator of experiences, of the ground to have experiences. We are not a curator in certain things, but we let it go so the people can do the most of it. And it's the right timing, it's the right aspect of detailing, because you can overstretch it and you can do it less precise. So it's finding the right thin line of productive work. Also, I can not more with you when saying working to a target is the most important thing. Having a strategic and a vision, where should it go, to align the people who work for you, who work with you, to give them the approach and have specific targets. And I have to say, also to work is so rewarding. I mean, yesterday we heard, or today maybe AI is taking some of our pain in the ass work away and leaving us more creative work. But work is needed for your inner self-sufficiency, for your inner self-well-being. Yeah? I think it's so rewarding, and we are losing it. The young generation is losing it to really go into detail and to really take the challenge of completing and finishing things. And that's what I would love to encourage. Yeah, it's so good. It's the same when you run a half marathon or something. Yeah, it's like target. You train, you go, you run, you finish.
There's a sense of fulfillment with embracing a challenge,
Yeah.
right? With putting the effort into it.
Yeah.
I think this brings me to, Barbara, something you said about pleasure, and that pleasure is not the opposite of being results-driven. The more results-driven an environment is, the more rewarding it feels. You know, I love this idea of bringing a sense of pleasure and play into our work. I mean, what is the point of this complex, often agonizing existence as a human being if we can't have a little fun with it, right? So I'd love to ask you more about this. Like, can you tell us more about like how you discover those moments of pleasure at the table, and what outcomes does it lead to when you actually unlock that for people?
I'll tell a story that I think illustrates it really well. We were doing like our Mesa number 5 for a corporation. And then in the middle, we had built this team that had a developer because it was something tech. And then during Mesa, we decided that whatever we were prototyping had to exist inside the intranet of that client. When we understood this, they were like, okay, our providers are Accenture, you know, we would need developers from Accenture. I was like, okay, let's call them. And then this client says, no, we're not going to call them. What do you mean? We're going to make the thing? I was like, yeah, that's what we do. We work. He was like, no, like we're just going to do the PPT. And I was like, no, but PPT is not work. And when I said that, his face changed completely. And then it was a little bit of a diplomatic accident because I understood that all he did for work was PPTs, right? And I had just said, no, this is not work. Okay, and then I was like, no, but it's just, you know, there was a little bit tension. And then we called the 2 guys from Accenture. And at the end of this Mesa, this guy who I was speaking to is a high-level executive inside a corporation. He was inside the bathroom recording a voiceover for the video that lived on the homepage of the thing that we were building. And the happiness, and when he came out of the bathroom, like having recorded a voiceover, he was really alive. He had just done something real, not a PPT, and he could see it. And for me, and we had that conversation then after we've delivered, and we were like having a beer, and I was like, I'm so sorry I said that, and he was like, you were so right you said that, you know, it was. So I think there's this, when you allow yourself to build, when you allow yourself to like take these restraints, you know, like, no, well, I can't do anything unsafe. I first have to get approval for this, and then I can move to the next level. When you allow that, I think that's where the rewarding part comes from. This morning, we were hearing Daniel speak about play, and I think what Mesa does is bring that mindset to like every single decision. We're working with the CEO of a long steel company, you know, like things are super structural. And this guy is there making something real, and that makes a difference. You allow people to like play, because work is play, right? Like it's the way adult humans play. If you don't have kids and they force you to play with them.
Well, yeah. Pleasure is also kind of like embedded in hospitality. However, I am curious to hear from you, Peter, how you create an experience that feels like a continuous journey of hospitality and, you know, intentionality, and not just a pit stop.
So first of all, it's so true that people need to be encouraged to really make decisions and take actions. I think we are mostly stuck in some, I don't know, middle class, I don't know what it's called, but people are afraid to do things and to make mistakes. So you can only encourage people to make mistakes, to do failure. Not too many of the same failures, but at least to try and try and error to get to the next level. That is also the thing with hospitality. No day is like the other day. Every day is different. People working there have a different mood, Yeah, they have a different interactions. There's different cosmic or atmospheric things. So it's always, every day is different in hospitality. It's none of the same. And I would never approach to copy one day to another. Because every day has something special and surprises, and yeah, make it good. Even if you make a mistake in terms of with your client, yeah, do it nicely. Apologize or whatever. Nobody will put your head off, yeah, when there is something stuck. But be polite. Do something to solve it. Yeah, be eager, be engaged, and that's also part of the experience. Things don't go smooth. And if you see all the luxury hospitality companies like Belmont or others where you pay $2,500 for a room for a night, yeah, everything has to be so over perfect. But it's so dead. It's so dead. There's no interaction.
There's a lack of authenticity, right?
Yeah, it's you don't want to have it. Yeah, you don't want to have marble and gold in the room for, I don't know, 100,000 euros. Or you don't want to have a hotel room like the Burj Al Arab now has for $100,000 a night. Yeah, it's.
Whoa.
I mean, this kind of luxury experiences are so dead, and the people who are there are dead too. Sorry to say, but
Yeah.
it's really a pity. So stay alive. Yeah, our people working for us are more like guests. They interact with guests on eyesight. It's like, yeah, having a 26 room hotel and 40 people staff. They can interact with the 40 people guests like they are guests. Yeah. And that makes the difference. Because everybody has to say something, everybody has to bring something to the table, and it's one. We are all one. Nevertheless, that I serve you the table or the dish or whatever, it's one.
Yeah.
So that's the experience, and so every day is different, and every experience is different. And even if there is at some point a bad experience, it doesn't matter. But what I can say is, and what we all look for is, we all want to be acknowledged for things we wouldn't do. We all want to be rewarded, and the most critics are we ourselves. So and that's in hospitality is nice, because you can do mistakes, you can bring your inner self out, and you get a response. Yeah, so you get rewarded for things instantly, positively, negative, and you can deal with it. And it's also a good education for the guest.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. So.
I just want to say one thing, because my reaction usually when people say, like, let's incentivize making mistakes, is similar to yours. It's like, hold on, because for me it's like mistakes are inherent to living. Like, there is no perfection. So you are going to make mistakes. But I also don't really push, like, I'll go and make mistakes. No, you're trying not to make mistakes, right? Like, you're trying to get things right. But mistakes will happen. Like, that's, for me, is the difference, right? Like, there is a whole, like, tech scene where people are like, fail faster. I'm not really, like, it's not exactly what speaks to my heart. It's like, fail is a part of the thing. Just don't pretend you can live life without making a lot of mistakes. You know, I think it's more that conscious that, it's not perfect.
But if you don't do anything, you can't make mistakes.
And then you can make mistakes, exactly.
And that's at the moment a very German thing. Yeah, we are stuck in not doing things.
That I agree.
Because
totally.
we are afraid of doing mistakes, and then I say, okay, let's do it. And mistakes are inherent, so let's just face it. Instead of doing nothing.
Yeah.
Try your best, but be comfortable with the fact that you're going to make mistakes along the way. This also reminds me of another thing that you mentioned, Barbara, around collaboration, and collaboration being an empty word. I love the provocation of this. You know, how can we think about when we're, thinking about the design of a room or a festival or a table, like, how can we make sure that each person has a specific responsibility or talent, right, that they're bringing to that table? And I think this is so beautiful because it allows people to feel, I think, connected to the work, to your point of, like, how do we get engaged, how we feel connected to the work. You've also worked with the late Kobe Bryant. We talked a little bit about this. Life is finite, and we don't always get to see the outcomes of what we create. So what do you think is, like, at the root of why collaboration has become such an empty word? And what do you hope for in the future when we think about specific responsibilities?
again, I think collaboration is needed. I just feel that the word has become, the day that I crafted that slide, it's been a long time, I was sitting across from someone, early years of Mesa. I was working with someone from my team. She called someone on the phone to invite this person to a Mesa, and she said, I want you to come for this collaboration process. And I didn't even know, like, we had never spoken about it. And I was like, what? No, like, don't. And for me, it was very clearly hearing that if you say this to someone, what their brain is going to hear is, okay, so I have to be there, and then someone is going to be responsible for something. I just have to be there. And I think that is the way to get to mediocre. Because everyone is sitting around the table then thinking like, yeah, I'm just here to collaborate. And then if someone says something that I disagree, then I don't know how hard I can go and say, no, this is wrong because I'm here to collaborate. Which is completely different if you call someone and say, and I remember when we got Fernando Meirelles to do a Mesa, it's a very hard person to get to anything for 5 days. It was like, Fernando, no one can tell a Brazilian story to an international audience the way you do. So I need you in this Mesa. And he was like, that is true.
That's
First,
beautiful.
he knows that is true. Then, so he said yes. And then when he was there, all the time he was holding these responsibilities, saying, this has to be a Brazilian story, but it has to be told in a way that an international community is going to hear. And then if everyone is holding a very specific responsibility, then you're going to get to excellence. Because then he's going to fight over someone who's saying, and he's going to say, this is, okay, Brazil loves that take, but like you won't get anywhere across these borders. And so what I feel is like a lot of times people are just using the word to not do the work, which is knowing why you need someone. And if you don't know why you need someone in a work session, in a meeting, just let them go and walk outside, be with their kids. Like for me, it's when the remote world came and I would see people like with their cameras off in a meeting, 200 people meeting, but no one is doing the meeting. And people think it's not hurtful to get 20 people in a room and everyone is in their cell phone. In my perspective, it's super hurtful. And I think that connects to like hospitality in a way, like the environment you design. Like if you have one person who's on their phone and they shouldn't be there, then everyone else all of a sudden is like, then I can check my phone. So I think that's it. So I think the word has like become this lazy word and people just use it and don't do the work of
There's a lack of intention to it.
Exactly.
Yes.
It comes back to intention, to like why exactly you need everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say it's like the delegated irresponsibility, because collaboration is misused, that 10 people sitting together, nobody is an expert in anything, but everybody is talking about it, yeah, and there's no solution.
Yeah.
So, and saying, okay, that's useless, yeah, that's not what collaboration is. Collaboration is you need one who is the decision maker,
yeah.
who decides. You have experts in different fields, yeah, and then you have to have a discussion or a discourse on things. Yeah. Same in politics. Why don't we have discussion? Why don't we have a discourse anymore? Yeah, why is it? So different topic, but same
Similar
root cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, same root cause, and that's what I like in Mesa. I mean, Mesa is simple. Put the experts together. Let them. Yeah, don't open the door again until there's white smoke out of the pipe. Yeah, we should do it. We should do it more often to solve problems, but with expertise.
Yeah.
So my final question for you before we open up to the audience. Both of you have such a rare talent for, looking at an environment and seeking to create that environment in which you shape human behavior, right? You have an intention behind the outcome that you want to achieve or the type of behavior you want to see, and you create an environment in such a way that leads to that. What is the first step that you take, whether it's creating a mesa, a table, or a landscape, a hospitality, a place, to create the environment that you want to create to lead to that, highest potential of human outcomes, right? So what would each of you say to that?
I think for us, it's like guaranteeing, there's the pre-preparation, but once we set the environment, there is an important aspect that I didn't speak about today, which is full presence. everyone who is there has to be there. So we take cell phones away. When we do remote versions, the experience team has a really hard time, but they do this really weird thing. When we do a preparation call, and during the preparation call, we make people, they say, you're going to have to be without your cell phone, no tabs, blah, blah, blah. They explain the whole thing, and then they say to the person, do you agree to that? And they have to hold it for 5 seconds. The person is like, doesn't even believe that they are asking this, like for real, and they make them say, yes, I agree to that. Because that sentence, that yes, I agree to that, is the one thing that the experience leader will have during Mesa when we can clearly see someone is typing something to say, you agreed to presence, and then I can bring that person back. And we are able to get full presence in a digital environment, which is nearly impossible, right? Like it's super hard. But I think that, like making sure that time space that we created has the full presence of everyone that is going to be engaged there is step number 1 for us.
Commitment to presence, yeah.
So, interesting question. I mostly do it with my stomach. So it's kind of
a gut feeling, maybe?
Yeah, a gut feeling. It's like I look at places, look at spaces, and I have this kind of feeling and imagination. And only if I have this kind of feeling and imagination, I go further. Then my brain starts to work. But the first thing is we heard about sensoric, about atmosphere, about vibes. So does the place or the space has the right vibes? Is it intentionally good? How does it resonate to me? Yeah. And it's all guts feeling. And only with it passes that one, then the next steps come. And then it's totally so cool. What you're saying. You need experts. Yeah, you have to find the right things for the planning, for the buildings or whatever you want to do. And then the second thing is never stop to be curious and be like a child. If you stop being childish, like playful in a way, you can't create your own reality. It's impossible. But when, and one of my really astonished writers is Astrid Lindgren at that. When she was 90, she was said, I'm still a child and I will always be a child. I'll see the world with childish eyes. I think it's a good metamorphosis to really be curious and to really face the challenges with the child eyes. Because if you do it with a mature thing, you never would start something which is really complicated. You would say, oh, leave me alone, yeah? Mm-hmm. And you need that to really do and create your own reality. It's the only chance, I think.
Love it.
Yeah, we're here to solve such serious problems. We don't have to take it so seriously that we lose sight of pleasure and play and hospitality. Beautiful. All right, we'll have time for maybe a couple of questions. Maybe like one? Okay, one question. All right, this guy rose his hand first. Can we get a mic?
Long walk there. Love it.
One question, please.
We have all the time.
Thank you. Zeche. Thank you very much for both your talks. Really proper stuff. So, Barbara, what's your favorite Saramago book? His style has ruined classic literature for me. Like, I cannot read
Which
normal,
one ruined it?
Saramago in general. He's ruined literature for me.
Because you can't get anyone better than him? Is that
yeah, I love him. And the second one would be, maybe for the both of you, can you talk a little bit about stillness and maybe slow productivity? For me, these are principles of Stoicism, and I was just wondering if you engage in Stoicism and this sort of philosophy.
I'll answer your second question by answering the first one, which is I read very little non-fiction or thinkers, which is a little bit mind-blowing even for myself. I recently had the opportunity to do a Mesa for Fábrica, which is this place It's like a communication center that I spent a few years in. They were doing like a 30-year anniversary. We got a bunch of ex-Fabrica people when we were deciding the lineup, and everyone had like tons of thinkers to suggest, and I could only suggest people who make stuff, right? Like it's just such part. That's why I started saying I think I only believe in praxis. So no, Stoicism is not a part of what like my references even. And then when it comes to there you go. But I wouldn't even know, which is interesting. And then answering your second question, I think my favorite from Saramago is Ensaio sobre a Cegueira, which I think it's translated as blindness. But I wouldn't even say he spoiled literature for me. I can help you out with like 10 other, because I love fiction. I think like it's such an important part of my life to be able to build this imagination. I don't even understand why we would read ideas rather than just pure fiction, pure imagination. That's how how I feed my brain to be solving these problems, right? Like a lot of people would expect you have to get a lot of like theory to then be able to solve very complex problems. And for me, it's like read a lot of fiction and make stuff. Read a lot of fiction and make stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, now we are sitting here and talking, and this doesn't reflect the normal day-to-day work. So I think I'm very stoic every day, because if you do things, things are going wrong, and if you have something in your mind and you want to have this like this, you have to be stoic, because then you have to tear down the wall again, and you have it a second time, you have to tear it, and the third time maybe too. If you give it away and say, okay, shit, it doesn't look like, but okay, let's do it like it is, it's not going to be the final result you want to have. So I'm a little headspace stoic when it comes to the right result I have in my head, but on a day-to-day basis. And I also invite. And I like people who are very still, who are very quiet, but do things and understand. Yeah, I really ask them if they have any questions. If they don't, they just do it. So stillness and stoicism is part of the everyday work, and but not an approach I would now say you have to be stoic or you have to be a kind of whatever philosopher's angle. But it comes along with the day-to-day work.
Very nice.
I would say.
Well, if you have more questions for Barbara and Peter, they'll be around at the festival, so don't hesitate to reach out. Peter actually is a motorcycle racer, so
I love that.
A lot more to ask on that. Anyway, thank you so much, Peter
Thank you,
and
team.
Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.